everyone, and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So today we will discuss two articles. The first article is from the Hindu newspaper, which is titled as Energy Efficiency Can Short Circuit Cooling India. So this is a very good article which talks about the cooling requirements of India, as in, for example, the ACs, coolers, etc. And how, if we continue to use the energy in such inefficient manner, how can this become a problem in the coming future? And what can be the sustainable methods to do so has been discussed in this article. The second article is from the Indian Express, which is titled as Regional Without Federal. So this yet again talks about a topic which we have already been discussing so much, which talks about the federal character of India. So what are the problems attached to it and how the states need more autonomy for better functioning? All these things have been discussed in this article. Also, for News in Flash, now as we had already told you that we have a separate and more exhaustive and more inclusive video when it comes to these News in Flash. So on the very same channels, you can find the News in Flash in Hindi as well as in English. So please definitely make sure that you have a look at that too. So this newspaper analysis is presented to you by me. My name is Sheva Khan. I am a law graduate and I had completed my BA LLB law degree in the year 2019 from Uttaranchal University. I have been a national debater and a public speaker, and here at LawSikho, I'm working as current affairs expert and manager for free content and outreach. If you wish to connect with me, you can find me on my Twitter as well as LinkedIn handles. The links to both are available in the description box below. Let's see what is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Which bank in India is authorized to issue the electoral bonds? Your options are the Reserve Bank of India, Indian Bank, State Bank of India, or all of the above. If you know the answer, do make sure that you put it down in the comment section below. This is a descriptive question for the day. What kind of federalism do you think India has, and what are the major challenges that it faces? Give your solutions. So here, if you wish to connect with us and you want to download the PDF of these slides, then you can join our Telegram channel. So also various other kinds of study materials like monthly newsletters, monthly quizzes, etc. we share over there for the current affairs as well. So the link to this Telegram channel is there in the description box, or you can also directly scan this QR code, which you are able to see on your screens right now. Also, do not forget to follow us on our Instagram channels for judiciary, CLAT preparation, as well as UGC Net if you're preparing for any of these exams, to never miss an update and get awesome content from here. On this note, let's start a discussion of the first article of the day, which talks about the energy inefficiency and future cooling demand. So the India Cooling Action Plan projects the number of air conditioners to become about 4 times in the next 10 years and 10 times in the coming next 20 years, making India the world's largest energy user for cooling. As we know that the global temperatures are increasing, and specifically in various parts of India, except maybe some hilly areas where it's already cold almost the larger part of the year, we need air conditioners, coolers, or other kinds of gadgets to keep the temperature of our rooms or our homes cool. And that is why, according to the India Cooling Action Plan, it has been projected that in the coming times, this usage or the number of air conditioners that we have in the households, in the commercial use, etc., they would be increased with great demands. So here, if we consider some relevant data, according to the household survey which was conducted in Delhi, so it has been recently published in the paper Environmental Research Letters, and the results have been the following. Firstly, in the wealthy neighborhood, 43% of the households, so just consider that almost half of the households own their own air conditioners, 39% own coolers, and only 18% have a fan. So you can see that the wealthy people definitely are, they are not backing down from investing or using their money in buying the air conditioners, coolers, and at least 18% have, fans. Then if we talk about the usage of hours, so most households use AC for 3 to 4 hours per day during the peak summer, and 15% use ACs for over 8 hours a day. So depending upon obviously maybe the need of the people of that family, or maybe that what kind of temperature is prevalent in that particular area. So most of the households, they have ACs and they use it for 3 to 4 hours per day, and 15% use them for 8 hours a day. And if you talk about the set temperatures, so 50% of them use at 24 to 26 degrees Celsius and stuff like that. So here there is this huge survey. So the most important thing that we need to understand here is that only and only 7% of the households have an energy efficient, that is a star rated fan, and 88% of cooler are locally assembled. Now, obviously, you must have seen that in the local markets, we have these coolers that are, generally called as the iron coolers, or, the lohe ke coolers, for example. So these are, they are locally assembled. The local craftsmen, they make these coolers, and definitely they are not labeled, or they are not taken as to be energy efficient, because they are not star rated. Now, if at all, I would give you a very, very common example to this. While you're listening to this newspaper analysis, if it is possible for you, you can walk and look at your refrigerator in your home. I'm sure that 90% of you would have a refrigerator wherein there is some star rating done on the, maybe mostly on the upper right corner of your refrigerator. This actually shows that how much your refrigerator is efficient in conserving the energy. And which energy are we talking about here? Definitely the electrical energy. So better the star rating, more is that particular appliance energy efficient, and more is the energy conserved through that use of appliance. For example, we have our geysers, we have our refrigerators, we have fans, etc. So all of these, when they are star rated, definitely they become better as compared to the other appliances, which definitely have nothing in the name of energy efficiency. And that is why it is said that it should be made more, prevalent, and people should be encouraged more to use the star rated products only. So most prefer to buy 3-star AC, less than 20% buy 5-star ACs. So because obviously whenever we invest in the first time, the higher the star rating, the costlier is the appliance, right? So but that is, the thing, that one time investment actually saves you a lot of electricity bill as well, and also it saves a lot of electricity too. So if at all we try to understand that what is the main issue regarding this, so large scale adoption of the efficient cooling appliances is important, definitely, to provide required thermal comfort in a low carbon manner. And definitely, if we are looking forward to conserve the energy and to make sure to not release such gases, or such greenhouse gases that are actually causing the global warming in the world, because as we know that the refrigerators, ACs, etc., they release the chlorofluorocarbons, which are themselves very high pollutants of the air. And that is why we need to make sure that we are using energy efficient appliances, specifically if you're talking about the you know ACs and refrigerators, so that least of the amount of CFCs are released in the environment. And low levels of energy efficiency awareness creates a bottleneck, which means that 1/3 of the households did not know that the Star Living program exists. So can you understand that this is the problem, that even awareness is another level issue, because many people, as you can see, that 1/3 of the households did not even know that there is something that exists in the name of star labeling. So definitely more and more awareness needs to be taken care of. So yes, one solution is that the awareness campaigns should be run, and second should be that we should encourage passive cooling alternatives, like maybe instead of refrigerators we can use, the very conventional methods like the pitchers or the surahis and the ghadas that we call, right? Because definitely they are very, very good for the health also, and they are definitely very productive in saving a lot of energy also. And maybe some other alternatives, like the architecture of the home can be done in such a way that it is very well lit and very well ventilated as well, that we might not even need such cooling agents or such cooling appliances in the coming time. And of course, all in all, the global temperature needs to be reduced in order to reduce the global temperature and the heat that the earth is going through. So let's discuss the second article of the day, which talks about reviving states' autonomy. So we have discussed this many times, so we will not do it into a great detail now. But yes, we need to understand again and again that yes, the center-state tussle, keeping in mind that what kind of federal structure do we have in India, is something that we need to pay our attention towards. And as we know that India has a federal structure, which means that the power has been divided between center and the states. Also remember that India has taken the federal structure or the idea of being a federal country from Canada. Please remember that even America has a federal structure, but we as a nation and as a federal country are very much different from the structure of America, because America says itself to be a federation of states, but on the contrary, India calls itself a union of states. Remember Article 1 of the Constitution of India. The difference between the two is that when we call America as the federation of states, it means that the states have huge amount of autonomy, and the states can secede, they can move apart from this federation anytime they want, as they have their autonomy and they have their own constitution as well. But in India, when we call India as a union of states, we mean that the states do not have the power to secede, which means that they cannot separate themselves from the union. And also, we have only one constitution, that is the law of the land, and entire country as a whole has to follow the same constitution. So please remember that India is a quasi-federal country. Now, why we call it as a quasi-federal country? Because many a times it is seen that the inclination of the federal structure is more towards the central government, which means that the center enjoys larger powers or greater extent of powers when it comes to the division of powers. So let's understand about India's federalism in practice. So theoretically, as we discussed, we have a strong federalism, but in practice, we are quite weak due to the centralizing constitutional architecture and the lack of appreciation of federal practice in a democracy. Now, as we know that there are various features of the constitution as well, like for example, the concurrent list, the power to make if at all there is any tussle or there is any clash upon any subject in the concurrent list, then also the laws made by the central shall prevail, right? Then the second one is that the residuary powers also they rest with the center. Third, in case of emergency, the president rule can be applied, which means that the control of the center can lie in the states as well. Fourth, any treaties or international conventions that have to be signed will be done by the union on behalf of the states as well. So that is why there are a lot of things, through which we can understand that India is a quasi-federal country, which means that the center enjoys greater extent of powers. So if we talk about the new BJP regime in the year 2014, so it was very much skeptical of the state's power, and it was adverse of power sharing as well. And that was the era when a very huge force of centralization was felt in the country. And also, as we know, that it abolished the special provisions for JNK under Article 370, and also it in a way try to destabilize the state governments where it had the non-BJP government. So definitely we are seeing that there is a less sense of support and cooperation, but there is a greater sense of competition rather between the center and the states. And of course, who does not know the time of COVID-19 pandemic when the states had to spend so much? Now, as we know that currently state, health has become it was after the 1975 emergency, health had become a central subject which was in the union list, but still, of course, having a duty, the states had to spend a lot to cope up with the COVID-19 pandemic. And in this situation, definitely the states fell short of a lot of funds. And when they asked the government, that is the central government, to give in the funds, there was again a tussle scene between the two parties, and the central government was not very much willing to give these funds to the states. So that is why in the times of COVID-19 pandemic also, what we required was a cooperative federalism, but unfortunately what we witnessed was the competitive federalism. And even if we talk about the GST, wherein after the states, they were made to sign and agree to the GST law, they were promised that they will become compensated for whatever losses they would bear in their revenue system. But that also, states had to plead a lot, and even till date, this compensation has not been completed by the central government. So if we talk about that, how can we revive the state autonomy? So there are four routes to it. First is the fiscal strength, which means that we give more autonomy to the states in terms of financial things. Second is the governance, that we should record, the record of the state government are not very attractive, and thus we should look forward and encourage the states to have better governance. Third is the political strength, that it is difficult for the state government to reclaim territory with unprecedented interference of the central government and fear among state bureaucracy. And that is why good political leadership and political will is required in this direction. And fourth is the regional identity. Now, here when we talk about the regional identity, this is many a times considered to be the only solution, but also it is considered sometimes to be very dangerous as well. See, as we say that excess of everything is bad, right? So when we have a minimal or the just the right amount of regional identity or the regionalism, then definitely it gives a lot of strength, identity, and a place to speak for that state. But when the state only and only thinks about regionalism, then it definitely makes it go apart from the other states, and it makes it looks very different from the other states and also the union of the country. Let's take an example of Maharashtra, when many a times you must have seen that a lot of incidences of violence, they came forward that the people of Maharashtra were not ready to accept people who were moving from the other states to Maharashtra, because they had a very, very intricate sense of regionalism. So this definitely is something not very good, and thus it should not be done. And the right amount of regionalism, that is just the right and just enough to give that state its own identity, is the one that we should be taking into account. So with this, we are done for the day. We hope it was a good session for you. Thank you so much for staying tuned with LawSikho. If you like this discussion, please subscribe to our channels and give it a thumbs up.